Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan, and today we have a special guest with us that is M. Allen Hall. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm getting there. We're getting along here. So,
Yeah, the time zone difference a little bit for you.
That's everybody. The best is when we talk to people in Europe who are only like 12 hours ahead. So, it is what it is. Yeah. We're here talking today about Godsspark, which is a project that's going out. Are you doing this for Zemo, ZineQuest, or just February is a good month to drop stuff?
So yeah, it's for ZineQuest. It's actually gonna start before and then run into February. So it starts on Tuesday and then it's gonna run into February to get it on, which qualified it for like the ZineQuest badge and that kind of stuff on Kickstarter.
There you go. Before we get to Godsspark though, because we'll talk about plenty of that. Who's M. Allen Hall? Who the heck are you? What have you done? Let's talk about what you've put out, because you've put out quite a bit already, actually, even before getting to this. So, what are some things people might know you for, or, let's talk about what kind of got us to Godsspark.
Sure. So, I started with role-playing games only 4 or 5 years ago. Started playing Dungeons and Dragons. And from that, the first thing I wrote was actually a novel series that was all set in a campaign of Dungeons and Dragons. That writing novels was an experience that I don't really recommend. But once I was through with that, I actually started writing a Mörk Borg module. Was like my first thing that I wrote that was playable. And I wrote it because I had seen other people publishing Mörk Borg modules. I had heard about Mörk Borg and put that out there. And like literally the next day I got a message on Itch that was like, oh, I played this with my group and we had a lot of fun. And that like instant feedback, I was like, I'm hooked. Like people like I can like put this thing out for free in the universe and then people are going to like read it and play it and then tell me they liked it. Like that's all I'm looking for here. I want people to just tell me they like this stuff. So started by writing modules and then advanced from there to writing full games, and written a couple full games. Started with copying some SRDs. So Stork, Raven, Madge is my Wretched and Alone game, and then moved from there to full featured role playing games of my own, which Sprinkles is Missing was my big release last year. It's a kid-focused game, but we find everybody can have fun with it. And then the end of last year, I started working on Godsspark, and so that's where we are.
Yeah. So I've said this before we got started. Sprinkles is Missing is great. I really enjoy it. I think there's a huge opening for a lot of kid-focused games, because a lot of us people in this scene are not kids anymore, and a lot of us. I mean, I don't. But a lot of people have kids, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy having something that they can play with their kids. Because, I mean, you can theoretically do D&D if you really want to, but 5e is not... I've never found it to be super kid-friendly without chopping it to pieces. So a system like Sprinkles is Missing was great. First of all, it's super cute, and very positively, I mean that in a great way. You're looking for your missing unicorn.
There you go.
The forest crawl is super interesting with the tables, and the system is, I mean, D6 and you get more, and you got to hit a target number, and it's pretty straightforward. So, what was kind of the impetus for? I mean, what was the impetus for Sprinkles is Missing? And I know there's an expansion for it. How was the process of putting that out and everything?
So it started. Can I don't know. Can I curse on this stream?
Oh, fuck right? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yep. So it started. I played the demo for You're in Space and Everything's Fucked with my wife, and we played it and we had a blast with it. And I was like, oh, this is an awesome game. My kids would love this. So my kids are 8, 10, and 12. But I'm like, I cannot put them in front of a game that's called You're in Space and Everything's Fucked. So with that, I was like, I should just take this and reskin it as something that, I got my hardcovers like 3 days ago. It's beautiful. It's a great book.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was like, I need to change this so it's something that I could like play with my kids. And so that was the inspiration for it. So the idea that it's something that's generated on the fly as you're going. And then as I was going through the process of reskinning, I realized that there were certain opportunities there to do things like make it more accessible for brand new game runners, because there, at least in the demo version that they put out while the Kickstarter was going, there was still a lot of weight put on the game runner to spontaneously generate the rooms and the dangers and what happens. And I was like, I'm going to take it. I want to make it so you don't need to know anything about running games so that you can run this game. So it's very much laid out like that. You read either sections in for every scene. The scenes are already laid out. This is the problem you're going to present to the players. These are you just read straight from the book. This is what they see. And then there's clear suggestions for how they could solve the problem, what you could suggest to them to solve the problem, that kind of thing. So it sort of started as just like, I should just reskin this for something that's PG. And then as things do, it morphed into let's make a system that's really accessible for everybody.
Yeah. And it is, like I said, it's really good. When I read through it, it's laid out really well. Like you just said, like you could, we talk a lot on the show here, because we do some like weird shit on here. Like a lot of people make some weird stuff that have been doing it for a long time. And a lot of games just aren't like gonna be people's first games. You know what I mean? And but Sprinkles is Missing easily could. Like I could grab anyone off the street, slap that in their hand, and they could be running the game for people in like 15 minutes. Like it's like super easy. Just grab a handful of D6s. And that's a really big like positive for the system. I mean, whether you're playing it or running it, it was really approachable. And like I said, as a kid-friendly system in a space that I think could use a lot more kid-friendly games, like it's really well done. So that was great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll say, so we had I was at PAX Unplugged this year, and I had a booth there, and we also had a demo table and we were running Sprinkles is Missing. And like some, so I don't know, we ran 10 or 12 games over the course of the weekend, and some games were like, there were a parent with their kids or whatever, and we played it. But then we had some that were just like 5 like tatted up biker guys that like have been playing D&D since like the early 80s, and like they're gonna go looking for their unicorn, and everybody's having a blast, and like everybody can have fun with it. Like I always, when I pitch it, I always say like it's good for like 6 to 12 and adults. And I'm like, a teenager could definitely play this and have fun, but I'm not going to promise you your teenager is going to want to do anything.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like I said, a lot of space for it. One of the reasons Mouse Rider is so popular is because it's really great, but it's also really approachable for families. And I mean, like Princess in Peril and stuff like that. Who didn't play, like, gosh, what is the name of that board game where you have to dress up as a princess? Because my sisters made me play that like crazy. It was when we were kids. You never had that? Someone in chat, I don't know what I'm talking about. You had to get all the princess parts, like clip on earrings and stuff. Anyway, I had 2 sisters. So
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah. But no, like I said, it's great. And then as far as putting out a project, having something that put into people's hands, like, obviously you're doing it again, so it didn't kill you.
No, it was fun. Yeah, so it was a process, and now, so I'll say I started that project in like June of last year, and at the time it was because Crowdfunder was doing like focus on kids stuff. It was like that was their month for kid focused products or whatever, and so I ran it for that, and it went terribly. And so it was like I had like 3 backers, and I took it down after like 4 days. I'm like, no, we're done with this. So I still ended up obviously making the game and put it out a little later than I may have hoped for. So it was a bit of a stretch but I was thinking, I'll try ZineQuest. It's like that didn't work out, but let's go ahead, try another crowdfunding thing. And that's where I was like, what can I do? That's where the GodsPARK came from as sort of the next step for that.
Gotcha. And so what made you want to do, because GodsPARK is a solo pen and paper adventure game, not like a journaling game, because you've written solo adventure games or solo journaling games. You've done Merkborg, you've done Cyborg, you've done Lost Bay, you've done Liminal Horror, you've done Sprinkles is Missing.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do a game. So there was at PAX U, there was lots of attention to solo games. So I already had a few solo games, couple journaling games, and one that's like a solo hex crawling, sort of again playing on the border between role playing and board games. And I think that's what GodsPARK does too. Like I don't call it a solo role playing game on the Kickstarter page or anything like that. Like I really think that this is this is an adventure game. So honestly, a lot of inspiration from Miru. So �𝐾𝐒𝐏𝐂𝐑𝐊, amazing game. And so the idea of, yes, there is a role that you're playing, but really you could ignore that and play this as just a tactical board game. And so I like the one player aspect, and that was where I started. And I had an idea for, oh, it would be cool, like if we were just, you just woke up in a place and there are these just like monstrous bodies like falling from the sky. Like that'd be awesome. You have to search through, and that'd be like, everybody's gonna love that. Put a skull on the front, it'll be perfect. Yeah. And so from that, I sort of went like, where could I take this? How could I make this into a game? That's where I found. So there's Godfalls, or what they're called. It's like, those are the bodies of dead gods. And we're going to go look through them. We're going to need go look for some Godssparks, which is like the divine energy in the game. And so from there, I sort of worked through, how is that going to work? How are we going to make a game out of this? And now we have GodsPARK.
Yeah. So I just brought up the cover, and it's a great looking cover.
Thank you.
Definitely snagged me as soon as I saw it. And we'll get to some spreads here in a little bit too, because it's a beautiful looking game. Are you doing all of the graphic design and layout and stuff too, or do you have people coming in for that?
No, that was all me. So I've done there's one art piece in the final layout that I did have was done by Strega Wolf Vandenberg. So I had them do one piece because it was just sort of, I knew what I wanted it to look like, and it was just outside my skill level. So we do have that in the final book, but everything else was me. And so I did the layouts, I did the covers, the skulls are all me. It was just like, I like, one of the things that I really enjoy about making games is I get to do all those other aspects. So like when I started, I was writing novels, and layout for novels is just like one column of words that just goes on forever. What I've been switching to games, I've been able to learn about laying out the text, learn about illustration, learn about all these other things. It's just a lot of fun. It's fun just doing everything, learning everything. And so for this game, I've been doing most of the stuff. So yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So I was just bringing up some of the spreads here. This is the page 2. I love whenever a layout crosses the middle page. It's nice, right?
I had a lot of fun with this. I really enjoyed making the spreads. They're all different. They're all, so 2/3 of the book, which is the rule book part, is every spread is like completely different from every other one. And so yeah, we've got the violence spread up now. It was just a lot of fun, just incorporating just straight photography, a little bit of editing, into the different text layouts. So it was an exercise for me. But it was a lot of fun putting it together. And I think, what we end up with is a nice, accessible thing that's also nice to look at.
I mean, novels, every game system under the sun so far, layout, art, like everything, kind of just hitting everything from all angles, huh?
Yeah, it's I like to have work on skills, and something I'm getting into I've got another project coming out at some point this year. It's a tarot based game. So I started drawing some tarot cards. And so I actually have some like physical ink and watercolor drawings now of tarot cards that I've made. And it's just like working with like physical media, which is not something I'd ever done before, has been really fun, and to watch YouTube videos and how to do these different things. It's just fun, just like doing everything. And that's what I said, like, cool stuff about games is they need all these different things, so you can learn how to do all these different things. Like, sure, you could also like get people to help you and like hire people and stuff like that, but this is just for, I'm just doing this for fun, so I just learn it myself.
There you go. Hey, listen, anyone that can do it all themselves saves a lot of money. And if it looks, like I said, these spreads are great, so if you can do it and you're doing it this well, then I would definitely just keep doing it. So GodsPARK, though, so it is you describe it on your website as like a pen and paper adventure game. Kind of reminds me of like 12 Years from X Moon or something like that, where you're playing through as a character. Do you want to walk us through, like, you said you're going across this world seeking these Godssparks, but did you adapt like another adventure game system, kind of how you did with Sprinkles is Missing, or did you come up with this whole system by your like?
This is all brand new. So the way it works is you start the game. And the idea is you wake up and you have been granted a GodsPARK by your god as they died. And so in my original idea of the game, every GodsPARK was a D6. And what I quickly found out is I was going to need like 30 or 40 D6s to play this game, which is fine for me because I have lots of dice. But I got some quick feedback that it might be unreasonable to ask other people to also have 30 or 40 D6s to play a game. So with that, I changed some things up. So every GodsPARK represents a D6, and the GodsPARKs as the resource. So it's a bit of a resource management game. They're going to drive everything. So when you have hit points, we call it just life, and the hit points go to every round of the game. You're going to decrease. You're going to lose 1 hit point. Just everything's decaying. Everything's entropy is accelerated in this place. You're losing hit points all the time. You're looking for GodsPARKs, which I'll get to a second how you find them. But as you find them, you can use them to replenish your life. So as you're going through on the sheet that you use to track the game, you're collecting GodsPARKs in one section of the sheet, and as you have them, you can move them onto other sections of the sheet essentially. And so if you move one into your life, now you just gain another 6 pips of life. That's on the D6. For items, which were called relics, 3 types of relics. You've got weapons, armor, and transport. And each of those is going to be, when you use them, you're rolling D6s. And when you create them from GodsPARKs. And the number of GodsPARKs you use is how much power they have. And that's how many D6s you roll when you use them. So if you've got like a power 2 weapon, when you are fighting an angel, which are the monsters in the game, you're going to roll 2 D6s. And so that's all great, but I wanted it to be a limited resource, and I wanted there to be risks to using it. So pretty much anytime you roll a 1 in the game, you're going to be losing a D6 from whatever it was you were doing. So if you are using your weapon and you roll 2 D6s and one of them comes up as a 1, your weapon just broke, and now it's only a 1d6 weapon. If you were using your transport and you roll a 1, now it broke and it is degrading, and it's going to get weaker each time you do it. And the same goes for enemies. If your enemy attacks you and they roll a 1, they're going to lose an attack die. So rolling a 1 is going to be reducing what you use. When you perform miracles, which are the magic essentially of the game, you'll take GodsPARKs that you have saved up, and you'll roll, depending on the strength of the miracle, a number of D6s. And again, if any rolls 1, it doesn't count towards succeeding in that miracle. Winning the game requires casting the highest level miracle, the miracle of Ascension. And so you need to save up, essentially need to fill up your entire GodsPARK pool. All of your storage has to be full of unused GodsPARKs, and you have to roll all of them and hope that none come up as a 1. And there's some recourse if some do and you're trying to win the game. You can have some re-rolls that you've saved up from earlier in the game. But that's sort of how it goes. And you're going to be going into these dead gods, which show up on a hex map throughout the game. They show up randomly, so each time you don't know how far you're going to have to go to get to the next one. And that transport time is going to be costing you time. And if it's costing time, it's costing life. And so all of that is going to be moving around. And then in the gods, you're going to use the playing cards to find out what areas you'll find in those gods. And some are going to give you GodsPARKs, and sometimes you're going to find NPCs. So there's other saints in the game, some of which can join you and become essentially like companions. Or you might find angels, which is going to be fighting. And the battles are meant to be short and hard and deadly. So, it'll be 2 rounds and one of you is going to be dead. There's some recourse again for you to come back and be reincarnated sort of on the spot and keep going with that battle. But I really just wanted everything to be really fast, and everything is really dependent on those GodsPARKs.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds brutal. Like, it's like extreme usage die, because it's not like, oh, you go down 1. It's like, no, it's just gone.
Yeah. No. So yeah, usage. So using usage dice, like what game there was. So at first I was thinking about doing a usage die situation, but I really wanted it just to be D6s, and doing I think it's Fallen that goes from D20 to D12.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, something I learned, again, not asking somebody to have 40 D6s on hand. If I ask people to have a full set of RPG dice, that's going to be a barrier. But even if you've never played an RPG, you probably have a D6 somewhere in your house. And you can play this game with 1 D6. It'd be a little annoying for some of the rolls, but it would work. But I wanted, it's in the attempt at accessibility, I really wanted to just be D6s. And I've done that for some other games. Whereas earlier I was using full like D20 for this, D12 for that. It's like, no, let's just make everything D6s because that's something I can feel more comfortable that everybody's going to have. Especially when I'm going to conventions and I have, a different audience and I'm getting traffic in my itch page. Like if you're finding an itch page for a role-playing game, you probably have a full set of dice somewhere.
Probably.
There are people that wander by. I'm at a convention at a brewery in town. Like, not everybody there is going to have a D20. So, right. So I like the idea of focusing on just the D6s.
No, I mean that's a great thing to do for accessibility, and I'm a huge fan of 2D. Anyone that watches the show normally knows that D6s and 2D6s are my favorite. I mean, I of course I have a million, but it's really interesting to hear. Kind of like the whys. Like I love that it's for accessibility, but I also I love the idea that, I mean, you're right. I do have 40 D6s, but I like that it's more representative too. So it just feels cleaner. So the premise of the game is basically to just keep finding enough Godssparks while you have enough energy to finally cast this final miracle of Ascension.
Correct. Yeah, you need to to cast the Ascension miracle, you need to roll 6. You need to perform a miracle with 6d6, which is it's the highest level miracle in the game. And your pool that you can have saved up is at most 7d6. You can have up to 4 every time you perform a miracle and you roll a 1. That doesn't help. That's a sort of a failure. So if you're trying to say you're trying to make a weapon. And you say, I'm going to make a 1 power weapon. I'm going to roll 1d6. If you roll a 1, you get nothing. And you lose that Godsspark because it's a 1. So you're not getting nothing. That goes into another column on the sheet, which is essentially a reroll. And so you can save that for later. And so you can have up to 4 little rerolls. It's just rerolling 1 die. So it's not like, so if I roll all 6 and I roll 2 1s, well, if I've got 2 rerolls in my pile, I can reroll those 2 and hopefully they won't be 1s and I can still get that last miracle. So it was a little, like you said, in one of my own playthroughs, I failed the 6 dice roll 3 times. And so like I'd roll a 6, I'd lose 1 or 2, and then I have to like keep going to find more. And then I get it and I roll it and I'd lose more and I'd keep going. And I was like, that wasn't very much fun. So I was like, how can we make something come from that failure? And that's where we got the rerolls from.
Awesome. No, it's so. I mean, this speaks right to my grim, dark kind of heart. It sounds great. Yeah. Pantheon Games is in the chat, and they said that after Sprinkles was missing, they thought you were kid focused, but now they know better.
It was. So I have a journaling game called Unhallowed, and for the cover for that, and it's literally it's a 1 page, it's a one page front and back game when it's printed. And for the cover of that, I made like a sort of like a metal, like a heavy metal logo of the word Unhallowed. And then I sort of like fused it onto a deer skull because it's sort of like a dark forest kind of a thing. And I literally made that game in a weekend. Like 3 days, 2 days for writing, 1 to make the deer skull, done. And that is my highest selling product ever. And I'm convinced it's just because it has like the creepy deer skull on the front. And that's why I said, like, I'm going to put a skull on the front. And I was like, my learning from that, people like skulls. So so now we have a deer skull. Now we have a skull on the front of Godsspark. I was like, how can I make a skull be part of this? Because that's, and so I'm running like Facebook ads for the getting ready the Kickstarter. And like, it's just a big old skull and says, your God is dead. And it's working really well.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I mean, not gonna lie though, I'm looking at the Unhallowed cover right now, and it's pretty badass. Like I would play this. So
see, that's like I said, that's literally like my highest selling product ever, and I'm convinced it's not because people wanted to play a journaling game, which is what it is. It's because they see that they're like, oh, that's cool. I don't know what this is, but like that's cool. I want that.
Yeah. Hey, art sells games. It
really does, which makes me wish I was better at it. But
hey, listen, you're good. So keep going. But if I could make that, I'd be happy.
I've done a couple things okay. It's like more generally, it would be nice to be more confident in it, especially because a project that's come up in the last few days that is in playtesting now. Is a it's a deck building game, and let me tell you, there's a lot of art in a deck building game. Every one of those, even though they're little tiny, like 2-inch by 1-inch pictures, like if I need 50 of those, I can't do that. Like
That's a lot.
I don't have. That's just so much. So it's like it's a little intimidating still sometimes.
Oh no, I definitely people that are these double and triple threats, people like Hodag, or we just had the guys from Stillfleet and Oddgoblin, and he did all of the art for his own game, which is really great. And I'm just like,
stuff is amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah,
it's so good.
So yeah, super jealous of being able to just be like, what's this thing that I want? Oh, I drew a picture of it. That looks great. Yeah, I totally get it.
It's like I have things in my head, and I'm like, I can't get this onto the paper, like, or into the iPad, whatever it is that I'm trying to like put it on. It's just not happening.
So, I don't know if we touched on this a little bit already. My brain doesn't still have it in it. But what was the impetus for wanting specifically to do a solo adventure game, and why one that is like dead gods and saints and angels and the vibes?
It was part of it was I got a lot of the solo games I heard a lot about when I was at PAX Unplugged. Like I had my solo games there, and I had people, and I had a little like sign up. I had like a sign says Mork Borg, and a sign says Cyborg, and a sign says D&D, and a sign says solo journaling. And I would have people come by and just point at that and like, where's your solo journaling stuff? Like, where are your solo games? So there is a lot, there's people want to play games, and they can't always get a table together. So like, sure, Sprinkles of Missing is great if you've got people you can play with, as are lots of role-playing games. But I wanted to be like, I want to make something that's going to be solo, that's going to speak to that group. It's the kind of thing that was sort of like a combination of, I keep an idea list right on my phone in the notes app. I just always have a list of like random ideas. I'm like, oh, that could be a game. And just sort of, I look through there. I'm like, what of these things could I make into a solo game? And so Dead Gods, again, it was sort of like, I had that Facebook ad like planned. I'm like, I'm going to say something like really gay. I need those rage clicks. It's like, I want to just like put something out there. Your God is dead. Like maybe get people just like catch their attention with something like that. And so started from there, and now we have GodsPARK.
There we go. Yeah. And I love solo adventure games. I really enjoy solo journaling games conceptually. I have a bunch of them. Yeah. I can't sit down and really do that, because I've got that ADHD perfectionism where I'm like, I can't just jot it down. It has to be the finished project, like as I finish it. So The idea of just being like, oh, let me just do that. Like I said, conceptually, I would love to love them more or enjoy them more, but solo adventure games like this, where you can like roll dice, move forward, have a goal, like have a quest, it really speaks to me a lot. And this is exactly that. I love the idea of it all just being this quest that you can win, which is cool. A lot of TTRPGs, it's fine that you can't win. It's just about the experience, but sometimes I want to win a fucking game, Which
is why I feel like it really, like I said, it plays on that line between role-playing game and board game, because you can win. And that's why I don't call it, it's like, I wanted a game that you can win, especially journaling games. Journaling games don't, for me, my games, they don't just end. You lose. You have to lose the game for it to end. Like you're going to die at the end of the game, pretty much, whether it's explicit or not in like what I wrote or what you wrote. Like that's we all know that's how this game ended. And so that's fine. But like you said, like maybe I don't want that all the time. Maybe I want to win. So like I which is, like I said, I don't even call it a role-playing game. Yes, you're given a role in this game, but it's the adventure. Like that's what we're here for.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it makes sense. Pen and paper adventure game is a perfect title for this. So yeah. So as far as crowdfunding, this is going to be a Kickstarter project.
Yes.
And it launches on Tuesday. What is that? Like the
23rd.
The 23rd. So and this is going to be your first Kickstarter, right? I know you said you tried crowdfunding, but for Kickstarter, do you have do you want to let's talk about Kickstarter. Let's talk about tiers and things like that. When people back this project, because they should, this sounds awesome. What can they expect when their project drops? If you're going to talk about that, like, do you have multiple tiers? Do you have? Are we doing hardback? Are we doing softback? Like, what's the project goal?
All right, so there's going to be PDF because everybody can always get the PDF. And then there's going to be because it is ZineQuest, there's going to be to qualify to sort of be in the spirit of ZineQuest. It's going to be a staple bound. It's about, I think it ended up around 32 pages. So it's not even honestly that long. It's a bit of a bigger zine. It's not A5 format. It's somewhere in between A5 and B5. So it's a little bit nice, a little bit more room, which I wanted for some of those spreads. And then there's going to be the PDF. There's going to be you just get the paperback version, and it will come. Even the base paperback tier comes with a couple. I'm going to print those the play sheet, the Saint sheet that has the map, and it's got all different boxes where you're going to be putting your GodsPARKs. So I'm going to get that printed on some heavier paper, and that's going to be included with all the zines. And then the sort of the top tier is just going to be the assigned edition, and then a print of Strega's artwork. So it'll be that, and that'll also come with some Saint sheets. So yeah, there's our Saint sheet, which has everything you need to track your game, to play the game. And so that'll be printed on like some cardstock and tucked in there. So hopefully it'll stand up to a few games worth of erasing and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great sheet too, and I love that. I love character sheets. They're great. I love that it looks like, and maybe I'm wrong, you can fold it in half and not fold over anything, which is nice because you could probably just print these out on 8.5 by 11 landscape, fold those in half, and have a couple of those with you to run some games if you want.
Yeah, it's laid out 6 inches by 9 inches, so it'll be a 6 by 9 card.
Nice.
Yeah, on that. And so yeah, it was initially it was across a spread of a book of it when I was still trying to figure out trim for the zine and stuff like that. But I ended up with this, and so yeah, you have everything you need there to track the game and how it progresses.
Yeah, it's and I like this. Christian in chat just said as well that they love this kind of sheet. It's the play sheet more than just a character sheet. Yeah. And for this kind of game, especially for the adventure game, it's awesome to be able to just have everything that you need to run the game, to play the game, to everything. You could just pull out this card, pull out the sheet, whatever, and then just have that open, working on just that, flipping through the book. Because I assume at some point, just like a lot of the adventure games, you're going to get to a point where you don't necessarily need to reference the book constantly for everything, especially if you have everything in a sheet.
Exactly. And part of it was I've played games where they've got the map is there on the page and the character sheet's on another page, but it's like if I'm doing stuff on that and then I'm turning away from that to find something in the rule book and then I'm turning back to that, or this way, when I played it with, I take the little red I grab some of the little cubes from like Terraforming Mars, like the little plastic cubes, and I like use those instead of like constantly checking and erasing to track. But if like I've got that in the book and then you turn the pages or whatever, if you've got your token tracking your mark on your movement on the map, like you can't be turning the page because it's fixed. Right. And so it will be that sheet it will be on the inside back cover of the book, mainly so if people get the book, they can like put that on the photocopier and like get this. There's also, you can always get the printable PDF from my website for free. But yeah, the idea is like if all you have is this book, and you could at least like throw that on a photocopier and get your own sheet on a separate piece of paper that you can play a game on and then throw away, and you still have your original right there in the back of the book.
Well, that's one thing that's a lot on your website, which is great to see too, is you have a lot of like free downloadable content for your games, like a lot of the maps and stuff like that. You can just go right to it and download, and that's a great thing to have for everyone, so they can actually play your game, which is nice. Yeah,
so that was like I don't know, remember I mentioned the first thing I made was that Mork Borg module. And that was one of the first comments was like, hey, can I get like an unmarked map that I can like show my players so they can see where they are? And I was like, yeah, that's true. That's great. And then when I started selling the modules as physical zines, I'm like, I'm not going to hand out a map with everybody, but like I always have a place on my website where you can just come grab all that stuff for free. All those supplemental materials, anything you would need to help run the game. And so that's why that's all there. But yeah, so the Saint sheet will be there, so anybody that needs more can always print them.
It's such a nice thing to have for people, for accessibility and stuff. To like, you don't need making people pay ticky-tack for stuff like that. I feel like would be like more driving away than people being like, oh, this cool guy had this cool stuff and I'm gonna just download it for free. Here you go.
Yeah, people love free
it's really
stuff.
great for the games as well. So did you? So is that's our highest tier? Because just like Pandion, I'm a highest tier kind of person.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I thought a lot about doing like a box set that had those little plastic cubes so you could move them around and had the dice. So you could have, here's your 8d6, like 8 is about the optimal amount because when you look at the Saint sheet over there, there's the two squares that have the 6 pips in them. And so those are 18 millimeter squares when you print it. So it can fit a standard 16 millimeter D6. So you're going to use a D6 to track in those two positions. And then the most you would need otherwise are the 6 for the available GodsPARK. So like I was thinking about, I could have 8d6 in that box and a bunch of those little red cubes, and then some little tiles to mark on the map where the gods are falling. And it quickly, like, I'm making a board game now, and I don't want to make a board game right now. Like I don't have the fitting all it into the box. Board games are a whole different beast. And maybe I'll be jumping into that at some point. But for this, I'm like, look, I'm just doing my first Kickstarter. Yeah, we'll have a book. We'll have we can get some nice art prints for Strega's art, and like we'll sign the book. But yeah, that's going to be my top tier. Anything more than that is like, it's a little too much for me. There's going to be a couple stretch goals. We're gonna print get some stickers done of the God skulls. So that the one that's on the cover, and then there's a second one that's on one of the spreads. So we'll get some stickers for everybody. And then another stretch goal is going to be 2-player rules. So I've got in my head roughly how you would do a competitive 2-player game. Essentially, it's a race. Yeah, I haven't yet taken the time to write it all out and play test it, but I think it could probably work. And there's room in the book for it. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. No, I mean, smart, super smart, especially for your first Kickstarter. Not having stuff is great. Stuff is for second, third special editions when you got a big audience for it. I mean, the number of I've only backed a couple 100 Kickstarters. And I got to tell you what, all the ones that have bits and bobs and stuff like that, especially for first Kickstarters, man, not only is it so difficult as far as fulfillment and all the stuff, but I mean, the amount of stress it's going to put on you, and those are always the projects that take the longest to deliver. And the longer you have from funding to delivery, the less people care about your game, so it's yeah. Especially for early projects, it's much better to do something like this. You already said accessibility was people, you have the dice, so people can already have the dice. That's such a smart choice, in my opinion, to keep it to the zine and a couple of things, and maybe in the future doing something that's really good to hear. Anytime I see someone's like, here's a box with 80 things in it, I'm like, fuck, that's like an extra year right there. Like you have to get all those things and put it in a box, and then I got to pay even more shipping to get it to me. So
it's really nice when I can just do media mail, and I can be like, it's like, sure, pay me $5, $6, I can get this shipped to you, versus like now I've got a box with all these things, and maybe it's going to weigh a whole bunch. Like all of a sudden it's $10 just to send it from here to like the next state over. And it's a lot. And I'm just first, like I said, first time. And everything that I'm doing for this, I've already done. I've already printed zines. I've sold zines. I've shipped zines. So like, let's just do a zine to get started.
That's really smart. I gotta say, you're like you're kind of prolific already, at least as far as the stuff you put out. Like everything that I've seen from you has been really fantastic. This looks really great. Like I'm surprised I haven't heard more about some of the stuff that you've made, and I'm really hoping that this really pushes that more into, I think, the consciousness on maybe it's just not Twitter, maybe I'm too stuck in my own loop, but you have a lot of stuff with a lot of experience with a lot of different systems. It all looks fantastic. It all plays great. And it's like everything you make seems to just be a banger. So I'm super excited for GodsPARK, but do you have plans for like what's coming next after GodsPARK? I know you said you have like a note sheet of like all these ideas.
There's thousands of ideas. So the next thing that will be coming out is going to be the tarot card game. So that is going back to journaling. It's called Endling. So on the topic of you die at the end of the game. So the word Endling in this respect came from a discussion on Twitter that word means the last of a species. So you were the last human. And so it's going to be, so that's obviously not going to have a happy ending, but it can be a successful ending. So it's going to be a journaling game, but there's actually going to be a winning of that game as well. It's going to use a hex flower to track your movement around the world as you're moving from the bunker where you've been holed up while every other human has died, to some as yet undetermined goal. So you're going to be moving towards a goal, and the tarot cards, which is a bit like anamnesis, the idea of you draw from a minor arcana to give you a prompt, and then you draw from the major arcana to give you some inspiration if you need it to answer the prompt. So it's going to be sort of like one of those games. And then with the cards that you draw, you're going to be building the history of this last human. And then if you manage to make it to the end without running out of resources, because it is still going to be a bit of a resource management game, then you'll be able to figure out what it was that you had to do and why you had to do it and who you were doing it for, that kind of a thing. But it's all of that together is sort of built into this journaling game. So that's probably that's the product I've got closest to completion, which I doubt. I don't know. It's one of these things, like maybe I'll do another Kickstarter. We'll see how this one goes. I haven't decided, or I'll just put it on itch on like a Sunday night and maybe somebody will see it. I don't know.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see
I mean, and it sounds great too. Like I'm just excited to start just snatching up your entire backlog and seeing what comes next. I mean, this GodsPARK, of all the things you've done, like I love Mark Borg, I love Cyborg. I mean, it's literally like all of this is all of that, but solo adventure games, like you said, a lot of people are really into solo games because a lot of people, COVID is still a thing and some people don't want a whole table full of people, or sometimes, their friends just aren't into this kind of thing. So being able to sit down and have the same kind of fun you can have from like a D&D-ish game or whatever, is really great. So I'm super excited for this. I love solo adventure games and this one sounds great. Kickstarter is dropping on Tuesday, the 23rd.
Yes.
This episode I'll try to have it up before then.
No worries.
But as far as all the rest of the stuff we've talked about, as far as Sprinkles is Missing, as far as all the previous games you've already done, where can people find those things? You're on the screen over there is your website, but what's the website and where can people find all the rest of your stuff?
So mallenhall.com has, at the very least, links to everything. I have my physical store there where I sell stuff that I also sell at conventions, which is most of the bigger products. So most of my modules are available there. Digitally, I've got everything on itch, as well as like we've been talking about earlier. I do lots of like random little jams on itch because that's fun and fun to spark creativity and stuff like that. So I've got lots of weird little games on there, on itch. And then I do have a handful of games that I put on Drive-Thru RPG. Not the whole catalog there, but if that's where you like to shop, I do have a few products available through that marketplace. Gotcha. And then for socials, most places on M_Allen_Hall. You can link. There are links to all the socials from the website. So as socials change, which they do, all that stuff stays updated there.
Good. Yeah. And in the podcast or VOD or YouTube or whatever we're looking at, we'll make sure that all of those links are down below so you guys can just go click on that. But listen, it's been really great talking to you, and I'm super excited for not only GodsPARK, but all the stuff you have going forward. Like I said, you're pushing all my buttons as far as games that I enjoy playing and systems I enjoy doing. So it's definitely great to see, and I'm excited for what's coming next.
Well, thank you so much, and definitely thank you for having me on. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you being here. So that'll be our episode for today. Definitely go check out GodsPARK on Kickstarter. We'll make sure that the link is in everything below, so you can just click on that. And thank you all for being here, and we will talk to you all later. Bye.